Welcome to FlyEaglesFly News, where Eagles fans get the latest, fastest, and hottest updates. Hit subscribe and fly high with us. The mood around Philly feels heavy. And even though nothing has been officially stamped or confirmed, the whispers are getting louder with every passing conversation among fans, insiders, and media voices. The idea that Jalen Hurts could be on his way out of the Eagles is the kind of rumor that hits straight in the chest of a city that embraced him as more than just a quarterback. People aren't just talking about football mechanics or salary cap gymnastics. They're talking about identity, leadership, and the emotional bond that formed when Hurts took command of the huddle and represented the grit that this franchise loves to sell as its soul. In recent discussions, the tone has shifted from disbelief to uneasy acceptance, as if people are slowly preparing themselves for a future they never wanted to imagine. Some say it started quietly, with subtle body language, vague comments, and decisions behind closed doors that didn't fully align with the public narrative. Others believe it is simply the natural consequence of a business that rarely rewards loyalty forever. Either way, the speculation feels real because it taps into fear. The fear that stability is fragile and that even the most admired leaders can become temporary figures. When fans replay his moments, they don't see flaws first. They see resilience, toughness, and growth, which makes the rumor even more painful. The sadness isn't loud yet, but it's deep, and it's spreading like a low hum through the entire fan base. What fuels this rumor even more is the growing sense that the Eagles might be at a crossroads, strategically and culturally, and Jalen Hurts finds himself right in the middle of that storm. There are murmurs about philosophical differences, about how the offense should evolve, about what kind of quarterback the future demands in a league that never stops changing. None of this is spoken openly, of course, but speculation thrives in the gaps between official statements and reality. Some insiders hint that the front office could be quietly evaluating alternatives, not because Hurts failed, but because the organization is always thinking several moves ahead. That alone is enough to spark concern, because it suggests that loyalty may not outweigh long-term vision. Fans notice how narratives shift, how praise becomes more measured, how conversations subtly redirect toward flexibility and options. These are the kinds of clues that people cling to when building theories. The idea that Hurts could be seen as a valuable asset rather than an untouchable cornerstone changes everything. It reframes his presence from permanent leader to potential trade piece. And that shift is devastating for a city that believed it had found its face. Even supporters who try to stay calm admit that something feels different, like a door that was once firmly shut is now slightly open, letting doubt slip in. The emotional weight of this rumor is magnified by what Jalen Hurts represents beyond the field. To many, he symbolizes accountability, work ethic, and quiet confidence, traits that resonate deeply with Philly fans who value toughness over flash. Losing him wouldn't just mean adjusting playbooks or finding a new signal caller. It would mean redefining the emotional tone of the team. Speculation suggests that some voices within the organization might believe that leadership can be replaced more easily than fans think. But history shows that isn't always true. Quarterbacks carry narratives, and Hurts' narrative is intertwined with perseverance and growth. That's why the thought of him wearing another uniform feels almost wrong to some supporters. They imagine the locker room without his presence, the sideline without his calm demeanor, and the huddle without that commanding yet composed voice. The sadness stems from imagining a future that feels unfamiliar, even if change is inevitable in professional sports. The timing of this rumor makes it sting more. It feels premature, unresolved, and emotionally disruptive. People are left asking why now, and those unanswered questions only deepen the sense of unease surrounding the franchise. As the speculation continues, some fans have started to analyze every move as if it were a clue in a larger puzzle. Comments from coaches are dissected, front office silence is interpreted, and even social media behavior is scrutinized for hidden meaning. This is how rumors gain strength, not through facts, but through patterns that people think they recognize. The idea that Hurts might be preparing for a new chapter elsewhere has led to theories about destinations, schemes that would suit him, and teams that might value his skill set even more. These conversations are not rooted in confirmation, but in imagination fueled by anxiety. The Eagles, a team known for bold decisions, suddenly feel unpredictable again. Supporters remember past moments when beloved figures were moved in shocking ways, and that memory feeds the current fear. Even optimism feels fragile now. Because it competes with realism, the franchise has always preached competition and accountability. And those values, while admirable, can also justify painful departures. The rumor doesn't accuse anyone of betrayal, but it highlights how quickly narratives can change in professional football. One moment you are the leader of the future, the next you are a question mark wrapped in trade speculation. There is also a quieter layer to this sadness, one that speaks to how fans emotionally invest in players as symbols of hope. Hurts arrived with doubts surrounding him, and over time he transformed those doubts into belief. That journey mirrored the fanbase's desire for redemption and respect. Speculation about his exit feels like that story being cut short before its natural conclusion. People wanted to see how far he could go in midnight green, how his legacy would fully unfold. The idea that it might end abruptly leaves a sense of incompleteness. Fans debate whether this is simply media noise or something more serious. But the emotional response suggests that the connection was real. You don't react this strongly to a rumor unless the bond mattered. The sadness in Philly isn't dramatic or explosive. It's reflective, almost quiet, like people bracing for news they don't want to hear until clarity arrives. Speculation will continue to fill the void, and every silence will feel louder than words. Despite all this uncertainty, there remains a thread of hope woven into the conversation. Some believe that the rumor itself is a test, a moment that will ultimately reaffirm Hurts' place with the Eagles. Others think that public pressure and emotional attachment could influence decisions behind the scenes. Hope survives because fans have seen reversals before, moments when fear gave way to relief. Still, the fact that this discussion exists at all says something about the fragile nature of trust. In modern sports, for now, Philly waits, caught between loyalty and realism, between belief and preparation for loss. The sadness lingers not because anything has ended, but because something might, and sometimes, that possibility hurts just as much. The second wave of speculation surrounding Jalen Hurts, leaving the Eagles, dives even deeper into the emotional and strategic layers of what such a move would mean. This is where the conversation shifts from shock to analysis, from raw sadness to uneasy logic. Some voices suggest that the organization could be thinking about reshaping its identity, possibly believing that the current window requires a different style of leadership or offensive approach. That idea alone makes fans uncomfortable because it implies that Hurts, despite everything he has shown, might not fit the long-term blueprint anymore. These are dangerous thoughts for a fan base that values continuity when it works. Rumors hint at closed-door evaluations, at long meetings where everything is questioned, even the most successful relationships. None of this is visible, but the absence of reassurance allows imagination to run wild. Supporters begin to ask themselves whether the franchise is prioritizing flexibility over emotional connection, and whether that choice could backfire. The sadness grows when logic starts to justify what the heart resists. People understand that football is a business, but understanding doesn't erase disappointment, it just makes it quieter and heavier. Another layer of speculation revolves around how Jalen Hurts himself might be feeling through all of this. While he remains composed publicly, fans wonder what it's like to sense uncertainty after giving so much to one team. There is talk about respect, about communication, about whether expectations on both sides still align. Some believe that even subtle signals can influence a player's mindset, planting seeds of doubt where confidence once thrived. If Hurts feels that his future is not fully secure, it could naturally lead to conversations about other opportunities, not out of disloyalty, but self-preservation. This perspective complicates the narrative because it removes the idea of villains and replaces it with human emotion. The sadness then becomes mutual, not just a fan reaction, but a shared tension between player and organization. Fans imagine how painful it would be to watch Hurts succeed elsewhere, knowing that his departure wasn't driven by failure, but by misalignment. That thought alone is enough to make any supporter uneasy because it suggests a loss that could have been avoided. The ripple effect of such a potential departure is also a major point of discussion. Speculation goes beyond Hurts himself and touches on the locker room, the coaching staff, and the overall culture. Leaders influence other leaders, and when one cornerstone is questioned, others start to feel the tremors. Fans worry about how younger players would interpret the move and what message it would send about stability and trust. The Eagles have always prided themselves on being a destination where toughness and commitment are rewarded. Letting go of a quarterback like Hurts could challenge that perception. Even if the move made sense on paper, emotionally it could fracture something intangible. That fear adds another layer to the sadness. Because it's not just about losing a player. It's about risking an identity. Speculation thrives here. Imagining domino effects that may never happen, but feel possible enough to cause concern. As the rumor mill keeps spinning, comparisons inevitably emerge. Fans start looking at other teams, other quarterbacks, and other decisions that seem logical at the time but aged poorly. These comparisons aren't always fair, but they reflect a deep desire to avoid regret. The thought of Hurts thriving in a different system while the Eagles search for answers is haunting. It's a scenario that supporters play out in their minds, not because they want to, but because uncertainty invites imagination. The sadness deepens when fans realize that control is limited. They can voice opinions, debate online, and express loyalty, but the final decision rests elsewhere. That lack of agency makes the rumor feel even heavier. It turns fans into observers of a story they are emotionally invested in, but cannot influence directly. Still, within all this speculation, there is also respect for the complexity of the situation. Some fans acknowledge that tough decisions define great organizations, and that emotional attachment can sometimes cloud judgment. This internal conflict plays out in conversations everywhere, with supporters arguing both sides while feeling the same underlying sadness. They want what is best for the team, but they also want to honor what Hurts has meant to them. That tension is exhausting, and it shows how deeply sports intertwine with identity and emotion. The rumor forces fans to confront the reality that nothing is guaranteed, not even relationships that feel solid. And that realization hurts. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. In the end, the sadness in Philly isn't just about the possibility of Jalen Hurts leaving the Eagles. It's about facing the fragility of hope. In a sport that constantly evolves, it's about loving a player who represents values you admire, and realizing that admiration doesn't grant permanence. Until clarity arrives, speculation will continue to shape emotions, filling the silence with fear, logic, and reluctant acceptance. Whether the rumor fades or grows stronger, its impact is already real. It has reminded everyone how quickly joy can turn into uncertainty, and how deeply a city can feel the weight of a maybe. The conversation refuses to slow down. And as more time passes without firm clarification, the emotional temperature in Philly continues to rise. What makes this rumor especially painful is how invested the fanbase became in the idea of continuity, of finally having a quarterback who could define an era rather than just pass through it. Speculation now frames Hurts not only as a player, but as a symbol of unfinished business. People talk about moments that felt like the beginning of something long-lasting, about leadership moments that suggested growth still ahead, not a closing chapter. The sadness comes from feeling like a story is being interrupted mid-sentence. Fans replay press conferences, locker room footage, and mic'd-up moments, searching for reassurance that may never come. Each neutral comment is interpreted as distance, each lack of praise as potential confirmation. This is how rumors turn into emotional realities long before any transaction happens. Even those who try to stay rational admit that the silence is unsettling. In Philly, silence is rarely comforting. It invites suspicion, theories, and emotional projection. The city thrives on clarity, even when the truth hurts. Without it, uncertainty becomes the loudest voice in the room. Another layer that deepens the sadness is the generational aspect of this connection. Younger fans, in particular, saw Jalen Hurts as their quarterback, the one they would defend, grow with, and remember years from now. Older fans saw echoes of resilience they respected, a player who handled pressure without excuses. The rumor threatens both perspectives at once, creating a shared sense of loss across generations. Speculation has even turned philosophical, with people questioning whether modern franchises can truly build lasting bonds with players anymore. If someone like Hurts is not safe from doubt, who is? That question lingers heavily. It shifts the sadness from personal disappointment to existential concern about what fandom even means today. Supporting a team has always involved patience and belief, but rumors like this test those emotions. Fans don't just fear losing Hurts, they fear becoming emotionally guarded in the future, less willing to invest fully. That would be an invisible but profound loss. The idea that a single decision could alter how a city loves its team speaks volumes about the weight of this speculation. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.